Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Instant Anger Management, Quick and Simple CBT Strategies to Diffuse Anger on the Spot, by Karmin, LCPC, narrated by Campbell. Publisher's Note: This publication is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is sold with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering psychological, financial, legal, or other professional services. If expert assistance or counseling is needed, the services of a competent professional should be sought. Part 1. How Anger Works. Everyone gets angry. Some people express their anger, but then feel guilty about it. Others suppress angry feelings because they think anger is not nice. Others have difficulty expressing anger and get angry at themselves for not being able to express themselves. Some just lash out. Getting to know what triggers anger and how to react effectively can help us manage anger in a positive way. Anger is an instinctual emotional response triggered by a real or imagined threat. Because anger is painful, we seek relief. Most people feel angry when someone or something obstructs them in some way, and many people respond to the feeling of anger by immediately wanting the satisfaction of forcing the obstacle out of the way, or, if it won't move, to curse and insult it. Anger management involves not saying or doing something that we will later regret. It involves calming ourselves, making a cool-headed assessment of the situation, and taking sensible action. To break the anger habit, we must develop an awareness of the events, circumstances, and behaviors of others that trigger our anger. This awareness also involves understanding the negative consequences that result from anger. While everyone is born with the potential to feel and express anger, we have our own learning experiences, which cause us to react to frustration differently. We learn from others. And one lesson we take away is to use our behavior rather than our words to convey emotions. Yet the expression of anger does not have to involve yelling or violence. Sadness does not have to involve crying. Fear does not have to involve hiding or avoiding. There is no simple explanation for why some people are angrier than others. Some of it might depend on our character or our early experiences. The following factors may contribute to our angry outbursts. Habit. Anger can become an automatic response to certain situations, and others may reinforce this habit if they have become used to us getting angry. Fear. Anger can be felt as a response to situations that we fear will overwhelm us if we do not go on the offensive. Shame. Anger can spring from the feeling that we have to fight to preserve our dignity and sense of self-worth. Loss. Anger commonly accompanies the sadness which goes with a bereavement or a severe setback. Lack of assertiveness. If we cannot speak up for ourselves and negotiate, we may find ourselves exploding instead. Low frustration tolerance. We go on the attack to deal with situations that most people would just put up with. Response to past trauma. If we have been badly hurt in the past, we may understandably react overly aggressive toward anything that seems threatening in the present. By reflecting on these possible factors, we can become more aware of what triggers our anger. The sections ahead explore how the body responds to anger and the cues that arise when we are angry. This section will also discuss our thinking when mad and the consequences of internalizing anger. 1. Wired to act quickly. When we become angry, our body prepares itself for a crisis. We prepare for fight or flight. This is a hardwired and fast reaction in which the body gets literally ready to attack or to flee. For example, if a grizzly bear charged toward us, our body would need to do certain things for us to survive. People's hands get cold because the body leaves the extremities in case a bear might bite them off. This basically protects the body's blood supply and allows the blood to go to specific places to protect itself. In this automatic instinctual routine, hormones pump rapidly through the body, The pupils dilate, the heart rate quickens, breathing becomes rapid and shallow, digestion slows down, sweat gland activity increases, and blood and oxygen drain from the brain into the larger muscles, preparing them for rapid movement. Notice the last part of the previous sentence, and blood and oxygen drain from the brain. This part is very important for understanding why I do it, get angry and yell. Stress, anger, fear can all overwhelm the brain, depriving it of oxygen, which totally shuts down our ability to think. When this emotional flooding occurs, we cannot think straight. The term flooding describes the release of hormones that prepare our body for action. These chemicals must pass through our body, be absorbed into the tissues, and released into the urine before our body returns to normal. The flooding from the fight or flight process takes at least 20 minutes. We will need a 20-minute respite to completely calm down physiologically. If the stressful situation remains, our heart rate will remain elevated, our body will pump out adrenaline, and our thinking will be clouded. We will be physiologically reactive, even if we know a different response is called for. Most people think they are calm long before they actually are physiologically calm. This cranial takeover in our brain occurs because our logical prefrontal cortex is simply outmatched by the competition from our emotional amygdala. This race is not even close, because emotion-laden pathways in the brain are faster than logical signals. Our amygdala's emotional impulses zoom down our neurological express routes. While the same information is also being processed logically, our rational thoughts are transported via the local roads, stopping at other regions of our brain along the way. But because the emotional pathways in our brain transmit signals twice as fast as the more roundabout route involving logic, our judgment simply can't intervene in time. It takes time to think, plan, analyze, and act. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors did not have the luxury of time. If they were confronted with a threat, they had to act immediately or they would die. They could not take a moment to weigh the pros and cons, analyze, and act. Well, there is a bear in front of me. Do I look for honey? Shall I catch a salmon? Shape some wood into a spear? Grab a rock? Run away? No, it was fight, attack, or flight. Run away. It was not logical problem-solving that helped them in that moment. Their emotional reactions allowed them to survive. Is there nothing we can do? Are emotions outside our control? In one sense, yes. But in a more important sense, no. It is correct to say that emotions are an automatic physiological response. In that way, they are outside of our immediate control, like our eyes blinking. But we can become aware of our blinking, and similarly, we can become mindful of what triggers our emotional reactions. If we can take control over our automatic reactions like blinking, breathing, and memory, it is also possible to take control of our emotional reactions. 2. Interpretation matters. Our brain is adept at depicting a whole pattern from just a few clues. One result is that we are susceptible to confirmation bias, a type of selective thinking that causes us to notice evidence for what we already believe, and to miss or discount evidence that might lead in another direction. When life unfailingly conforms to our most negative expectations, we can be sure that confirmation bias is at work. This reminds me of a client I saw who had 2 failed marriages and concluded, "All women are after your money." From only 2 examples, he created a generalization that included billions of women. His anger, his unwillingness to allow any women to get close to him, was the side effect of 2 fundamental facts about how the brain works. First, the brain has the amazing ability to see a pattern with minimal clues. And second, the brain has a tendency to look for evidence that confirms already existing beliefs. So once you have concluded something, you have a strong tendency to generalize that conclusion by noticing only evidence that supports your pre-existing belief. Angry, cynical, or hostile feelings cause your mind to look for negative evidence and selectively ignore any positives. In this way, the pain comes from making negative events larger and more awful than they really are. When we feel anger or any other emotion, our response is the product of two factors. One, the objective physiological arousal that a particular event produces in us, and two, our subjective interpretation of the event. For example, if someone steps on our toe, we will feel pain, but our heart will also start beating faster. This reaction is automatic, and we have little control over our body's initial physical response. However, the emotions we experience are not automatic and will be influenced by our interpretation of the event. If we perceive that it was an accident and the person feels badly, we may feel compassion for the other person, even though we are in physical pain. If we perceive that it was on purpose, however, we may feel angry and that it shouldn't have happened. Sometimes we interpret events as caused by situational factors. I missed the flight because the traffic was bad, whereas individuals with anger tend to attribute the same events to human factors. I missed the flight because the cab driver was terrible. This is because anger is typically caused by the actions of people and sadness by factors that are circumstantial. If we are overly sensitive to rejection, we may interpret meaningless interactions as a sign that someone is snubbing us. If we have a strict code of conduct, we may become angry whenever anyone bends the rules. We may interpret others' attempts to win a game as efforts towards superiority and dominance, so we assume they are putting us down and belittling us. Instead, try looking at anger in terms of the following interpretations. 1. Seeking revenge. We feel hurt, so we want to get even and make things fair. 2. Preventing disaster. We feel helpless, so we want to take control. 3. Pushing others away. We feel discouraged, so we want to withdraw from life and avoid being judged. 4. Getting attention. We feel disrespected, so we lash out to be acknowledged or to prove our importance. 5. Expressing difficult feelings. We are overwhelmed, so we want to reduce our discomfort. If you find that you're often in a state of anger, you may want to examine the interpretations you're bringing to events, since your interpretations may be promoting angry thoughts that color your expectations about how your life will unfold. The key to our experience of emotion is our interpretation of events, not the events themselves. 3. Bottled emotions. Most people are not taught how to fix these things called emotions. One lesson many of us are taught is to label some feelings, fear, sadness, as bad or negative states, and others, anger, excitement, as good or positive. However, feelings are neither good nor bad. Feelings just are. If we listen to our emotions and understand what they mean, we can address them and their intensity will fade. But if we ignore what our emotions tell us, our feelings will build up and may result in a display of destructive behavior. Emotions are part of our life, and to deny them is to deny part of ourselves. I have seen people who have discussed painful experiences from 15 to 20 years ago, saying, "I thought I got over it. I guess I didn't." Truthfully, they may have gotten over the initial experience, but the feeling is still as powerful as when it was first formed. As a result, these emotions resurface, and we experience the anger that was felt at some time in our past. Let's take a man who had a bad first marriage. He may relive an emotional experience of jealousy any time his wife mentions, "I might be late." The anger he feels when hearing this statement in the present triggers his brain to search for a memory and recall a feeling of jealousy from his first marriage. If the husband dwells on this feeling, he will become insecure, angry, and suspicious for no reason. When an emotional memory is triggered, we will say the same things, feel the same intensity of emotion, and behave the same way we did at the time the memory was created. That is to say, we will respond to today as if it were a different time or place in our lives. As a result, we may become defensive and lash out with anger, or withdraw and avoid confrontation due to sadness or fear. Many of these reactions, however, are not appropriate for the current situation. These reactions are based on past relationships and emotional experiences that were never addressed. 4. Identify your cues. An important aspect of anger management is to identify the cues that occur in response to the anger-provoking event. These cues serve as warning signs that you have become angry and that your anger is continuing to escalate. They can be broken down into 4 cue categories: physical, behavioral, emotional, and cognitive, or thought cues. Physical cues involve the way our bodies respond when we become angry. For example, our heart rate may increase, we may feel tightness in our chest, or we may feel hot and flushed. These physical cues can also warn us that our anger is escalating out of control. We can learn to identify these cues when they occur in response to an anger-provoking event. Can you identify some of the physical cues that you have experienced when you have become angry? Faster heart rate, higher blood pressure, sweating, muscle tightness, headache, trembling or twitching, nausea or vomiting, sleep problems, fatigue, shallow breathing. Behavioral cues involve the behaviors we display when we get angry, which can be observed by other people around us. For example, we may clench our fists, pace back and forth, slam a door, or raise our voices. These behavioral responses are the second cue of our anger. What are some of the behavioral cues that you have experienced when you become angry? Kicking or throwing something, getting in someone's face, shoving, grabbing, hitting, breaking something, calling someone names, giving someone a dirty look, silent treatment, aggressive behaviors like road rage, increased alcohol or drug use, under or overeating, reduced concentration, reduced motivation, accusations or blame, yelling. Emotional cues involve other feelings that may occur concurrently with our anger. For example, we may become angry when we feel abandoned, afraid, discounted, disrespected, guilty, humiliated, impatient, insecure, jealous, or rejected. These kinds of feelings are the core or primary feelings that underlie our anger. It is easy to discount these primary feelings because they often make us feel vulnerable. An important component of anger management is to become aware of and to recognize the primary feelings that underlie our anger. We can view anger as a response to these underlying feelings. Can you identify some of the primary feelings you have experienced during an episode of anger? Hostility, sadness, guilt, jealousy, shock, worry, defensiveness, suspiciousness, shame, apathy, lack of interest, panic, pessimism. Cognitive cues refer to the thoughts that occur in response to the anger-provoking event. These thoughts are based on how we interpret the event. For example, we may interpret a friend's comments as criticism, or we may interpret the actions of others as demeaning, humiliating, or controlling. Some people call these thoughts self-talk because they resemble a conversation we are having with ourselves. When we are angry, this self-talk is usually very critical and hostile in tone and content. In turn, we expose our negative beliefs that the world is a bad place, based on unrealistic ideas about people, places, and things. Closely related to thoughts and self-talk are fantasies and images. Fantasies and images are other types of cognitive cues that can indicate an escalation of anger. For example, we might fantasize about seeking revenge on a perceived enemy, or imagine or visualize our spouse having an affair. When we have these fantasies and images, our anger can escalate even more rapidly. Here are some examples of cognitive or thought cues. Can you think of more? They did that on purpose. They wanted to hurt me. They deserve this. They never even asked me. They're being unreasonable. You think you're better than me. I'll show you. It's not fair. They started it. They don't care about me. They cannot be trusted. When you're learning to manage your anger in a non-aggressive way, it is important to recognize how anger feels for you and get to know the situations that produce it. It's easier to take these first steps if you become aware of your anger's characteristic physical, emotional, behavioral, and cognitive signs. Often there are different signs in different situations or with different people in your life. Part 2. Taking care of yourself. We each may have fallen victim to our daily routine becoming a series of tedious demands and unfulfilling obligations. Driving to our kids' soccer games, mowing the lawn, picking up the dry cleaning, visiting our mother-in-law, doing the dishes, taking the dog to the vet, cleaning the house, buying groceries. We are all bombarded every day with tasks, people, work, and obligations that make demands on our time and energy. It's easy to let these things overwhelm us and foster anger. If you're overwhelmed and chronically angry, the logical, natural antidote to your stressful state is relaxation. After all, you can't be frustrated and relaxed at the same time. It's physiologically impossible. Relaxation is always within your reach, because all it requires you to do is the things you do anyway: sleep, eat, and breathe. Taking care of yourself will help maintain your physical, emotional, and mental reserves to prevent and manage anger. If you're so stressed that you feel like you don't have the time or energy to devote to self-care, that's when you need replenishment the most. Prioritizing self-care is a decision that only you can make, and changing behavior can take some effort. This section explores self-care strategies to cope with feelings of anger. Doing some relaxation techniques for 20 minutes a day will enable you to respond calmly rather than lashing out in anger. These skills help to calm your mind and body, which buffers the immediate impact that anger has on you. 5. Improving sleep. You've probably heard the old saying, "Never go to bed angry." Some say it goes back to the Bible. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, "Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." But while resolving anger before bedtime is great advice, a more common problem is not getting enough sleep. Researchers suggest that when people are sleep-deprived, they feel more irritable, angry, and hostile. In addition, sleep deprivation seems to be associated with more intense emotional reactivity, in that people who suffer from sleep loss are especially likely to react with anger when something doesn't go well for them. This happens because sleep deprivation increases amygdala, emotional activity, and reduces prefrontal cortex, thinking functioning in the brain. In other words, insomnia fuels increased anger and decreased judgment. Try this. While there is merit to timely conflict resolution, sometimes it's actually better to go to bed angry than to stay up and get more fatigued. There is a strong chance that you will wake up in the morning not even thinking about the previous night's discussion. A small conflict that is not worth fighting over will be forgotten after a night of rest. If you are still upset in the morning, then you know you feel strongly about the issue. You can restart the discussion with a fresh perspective and a clear frame of mind, which will ultimately provide a better resolution. Here are some tips for better sleep habits. Do not nap during the day. If we are having trouble sleeping at night, avoid naps during the day, because napping will throw off your body clock and make it even more difficult to sleep at night. If you are feeling especially tired and feel as if you absolutely must nap, be sure to sleep for less than 30 minutes and do it early in the day. Limit caffeine and alcohol. Avoid drinking caffeine or alcohol several hours before bedtime. Although alcohol may initially act as a sedative, it can interrupt normal sleep patterns. Don't smoke. Nicotine is a stimulant and can make it difficult to fall asleep and stay asleep. Many over-the-counter and prescription drugs may disrupt sleep as well. Keep your bedroom peaceful and comfortable. Make sure the room is well ventilated and the temperature consistent, and try to keep it quiet. You can use a fan or a white noise machine to help block outside sounds. Hide your clock. A big illuminated digital clock may cause you to focus on the time and make you feel stressed and anxious. Place your clock so that you can't see the time when you are in bed. If you are particularly angry, built-up stress can keep you up at night. It can come from any situation, but it will leave your heart racing and your mind stewing. In later chapters, you will learn how to let go of feelings of anger to help you get some sleep. 6. Eating well. There is a connection between being hungry and feeling angry. How does this work? As humans, we have the choice to listen to our hunger or ignore it. Yet, in our busy and overbooked lives, we often choose to ignore this signal, waiting far too long to feed an empty stomach. Our body's response to being ignored is to cause an emotional reaction, like anger, to get our attention. And the longer we deprive ourselves, the greater the emotional response. However, being hangry is dependent on context. If we're hungry and having a bad day, and a coworker blames us for missing a deadline, we're likely to direct our anger at them. If we're hungry because we just ran through a field of daisies with a pack of adorable puppies, we might not be so snappy. Hunger signals to us that something is wrong, that it's time to eat. But as humans, we may interpret that aversive feeling as something external before we look into what our body is really telling us. This means that feeling hangry occurs when our hunger-induced negativity gets blamed on the external world around us. You think that the person who cut you off on the road is what made you angry, not the fact that you haven't eaten all day. Try this. What can be done about hanger? To help manage your anger and satisfy your stomach, here are a few suggestions. Make sure you always have some healthy food available. Trying to soothe hanger with candy or other junk food will just create a vicious cycle. The sugary snack will spike blood glucose for half an hour, but afterward you will crash again, as the insulin response removes the glucose from the bloodstream, once again alerting the brain to spring to action. Don't skip meals. If you miss a meal, you miss the opportunity to provide energy to your mind and body. Waiting too long between times that you eat can create a drop in blood sugar, which could become seriously dangerous in some cases, causing lightheadedness or disorientation. You should not go more than 4 or 5 hours between meals, and for most of us, snacking between meals is essential. Snack smart. The tried-and-true trio that will keep you going without blowing a fuse is a medley of protein, fat, and carbs. Whether it's a slice of cheese and whole-grain crackers, cereal, or a homemade trail mix, be sure to keep these on-the-go snacks handy so that you have them readily available when you feel your mood diving toward a meltdown. Fundamentally, learning to notice how hunger impacts your interpersonal reactions can create powerful opportunities for managing anger. 7. Breathing deeply. Ever been told to take a deep breath when you feel angry? Well, it's good advice. That's because the first reaction to frustration is purely physiological. We receive a rush of adrenaline to prepare us to take action in real danger. In most cases, simply taking a few moments to practice deep breathing will allow our body to calm down. When we deliberately take slow, deep breaths, we are indirectly telling our body that all danger has now passed. As a consequence, our body will stop producing adrenaline and our arousal will cease. Slow, deep breathing reverses our body's stress response of anger, slows the heart, reduces blood pressure, and releases endorphins, our body's natural painkillers. You can try this. Place your hand on your stomach below your ribs. Begin by breathing in slowly through your nostrils like you are smelling a beautiful flower, or imagine that you are smelling the turkey on Thanksgiving, or cookies baking on Christmas. Breathe in slowly and deeply, silently saying the word in. Then pucker your lips and blow out. Imagine you're blowing on your cup of coffee to cool it off, or as if you were blowing at a match.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?